of any wasiyah, any bequest, غير مضار, not intended to harm anyone. Wasiyyatan min Allah. This is an ordinance from Allah. Wallahu alimun halim. And Allah is all knowing and forbearing. These are the two verses that are the primary source of ilm al-fara'id. They are the primary source of the law of inheritance of Islam. So in the first verse, which was verse 11 of Surah Al-Nisaa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explained the shares of father, grandfather, or mother, and son, and daughter, and children. And in verse 12, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explained the shares of husband and wife, and a man who has left no ascendants or no descendants behind, or a woman who has left no ascendants or no descendants. The word kalala has been used here. Ulama have defined the word kalala in many different ways. Allama Qurtubi rahmatullahi alayh has explained in his Tafsir, and Allama Alusi rahmatullahi alayh, he has mentioned that this word kalala is mastar, is the root word, and it comes from the word kalal, and kalal means weak. So it represents weakness, and the person who was alone, who had no father, no grandfather, and no son, no daughter, no grandson, no granddaughter, so he was in a way a weak person. So he had a weakness from relatives, because he had no direct descendants or ascendants left behind when he died. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called that man or a woman kalala, that they have this weakness, that they have no ascendants left behind and no descendants left behind. Ascendants means he had no father, no grandfather. Anyone father and above are called ascendants. In Arabic, they are called usul. The word usul comes from asal, means the root. Because if there's father, then there will be son. If there's no father, there will be no son. So the father and the grandfather and the great-grandfather, they are considered usul. They are considered the roots. They're considered the origins. And then the children, the descendants, they are considered furu', because they are part of their parents' existence. If they had no parents, they would not be there. So usul and furu'. So kalala is someone who had no ascendants and no descendants, who had no father, no grandfather, no great-grandfather, and no son, no daughter, no grandson, no granddaughter. So this is someone who is called kalala in the tafsir of Quran. وَإِنْ كَانَ رَجُلٌ يُورَثُ كَلَالَةً أَوْ إِمْرَأَةٌ وَلَهُ أَخٌ أَوْ أُخْتٌ فَلِكُلِّ وَاحِدٍ مِّنْهُمَا السُّدُسُ. Now obviously, it is very clear, especially when you look at in this environment, in these communities, there are many people who are kalala. There are many people whose father, whose grandfather have already passed away, and they never either got married or never had any children. So they have no children. But they do have a brother or a sister. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explained the case of these people. People who have no father, no grandfather, no son, no daughter, no grandson, no granddaughter at the time of death. The only person who is left behind is either a sister or a brother, or sisters or brothers. So what will happen in that case? How will the wealth be distributed? Because there is no son, there's no daughter, there's no father, there's no mother. So there's no share will go to any of these people, because they're not there. But a brother or a sister is still there, and they're still relatives, and they're still close relatives, not as close as the mother and the daughter is, or the son and the father, or the father and the son are, but they are still close, brother and sister. So in that case, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَلِكُلِّ وَاحِدٍ مِّنْهُمَا السُّدُسُ. Each one of these two, brother or sister, who is left behind, they will get 1/6 of the inheritance, of the total estate. 1/6 of the estate will go to them, and the rest will be given in different places. من بعد وصية فإن كانوا أكثر من ذلك. Now if these brothers and sisters are more than one, she or he was survived by two brothers or two sisters, or two sisters and two brothers, or three sisters and three brothers, in that case Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says فَهُمْ شُرَكَاءُ فِي الثُّلُثِ. They will each equally share 1/3 of the entire wealth on equal terms. Remember, we learned in verse 11, لِلذَّكَرِ مِثْلُ حَظِّ الْأُنْثَيَيْنِ, that for the female is half of the share of the male, or for the male is the double of the share of one female. So in that verse, the distribution was not on equal terms. The boy was getting more than the girl. The male was getting more than the female. Here is a different case. And this is the only case where the sharing will take place on equal terms, where the distribution will take place on equal terms. When the person who died, or whether a man or a woman, was survived by none other than the brother or sister, then the brother and sister, if there are more than one, then they will all share 1/3 of entire estate on equal terms. So if, let's say, if it's $12,000 and there are 4 brothers and sisters, each one of them will get $3,000. No boy will get double of the girl. In normal distribution, when it is taking place between the children or the grandchildren, then the law of لِلذَّكَرِ مِثْلُ حَظِّ الْأُنْثَيَيْنِ is applicable. But here it's not. Alama Alusi rahmatullahi alayhi, the author of Ruhul Ma'ani, has explained that this is the only place where the distribution will take place on equal terms. من بعد وصية يوصى بها أو دين غير مضار وصية من الله. Now we come to answer the question. In Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala repeats again and again. We'll take questions after that, inshallah. In both verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala repeats again and again that all the distribution will take place after the fulfillment, or after honoring the bequest, and then after paying the debts. But in reality, debts will take priority. Debt will be repaid first, and then if there are any bequests, they will be honored. So why the Quran has said it in the other direction? The Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is very clear. The Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has established that the debt will be repaid before any bequest. So for example, if all the wealth was taken in repayment of the debt and no wealth was left behind, then the bequest and the will not be honored, because there is nothing left behind. So the fulfillment of bequest or honoring of bequest will not be given priority over the repayment of the debt. The debt will be repaid first. And the reason for that is, as Imam Qurtubi rahmatullahi alayhi has explained in his Tafsir, the reason for that is because For debt, there are people who are demanding the repayment of that debt. The lenders,